Hey guys, welcome back to another exciting episode of YOML. This is the year of much good learning. Today we actually have a very special guest podcast, which is Aaron's going to share his books and his reading and his reflection, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say.
All right, great. So today we are discussing, I can't really say, I always take the front cover off, but it is a book called From Strength to Strength by Arthur Brooks. He is a professor at Harvard. He sort of does studies happiness, or that's kind of what he teaches about. So I recently read this and took some notes here.
Well, give us a quick synopsis of what it's about, just at a high level.
Unless that's a part of your notes. That's why I take notes.
Unless that's a part of your notes. Like, I mean,
it's in the notes here if I can. Yeah. For some reason, it's not letting me share my screen though.
You probably have to give him share privileges, Chris.
Do I have sharing privileges, Chris?
Security. Under security.
I mean, I don't see anything that I need to do.
Let me hold shift. Whatever. Maybe it's in my sharing preferences, but I don't feel like dealing with that. So anyway, I'll just kind of read and go through it. So what was this book about? To sum it up in a couple sentences before I read through my notes, it's about how when we're younger, let's say like in our early years in our professional life, let's say like as we're developing our 20s into our mid 30s, we have what he calls fluid intelligence. So sort of this ability to create, be creative, make new ideas. And then as we start to age, that fluid intelligence starts to decline. And he says it's important to link on to what he calls your crystallized intelligence. And sort of the idea that you are going to be, he talks about in your early years, you create ideas. In your later years, you synthesize ideas. And so I thought that was a nice way to put it. And so he talks about too, like how the necessity to make that transition smoothly and to accept it. Don't deny the fact that your abilities are going to decline, and you need to kind of change your strategic goals, I think, when it comes to work. So a couple notes that I just had. I'm going to read through my notes. Satisfaction from success lasts but an instant. Humans simply aren't wired to enjoy an achievement long past. No one feels sorry for a successful person, though. Once successful does not mean happy. Fluid intelligence, early on we invent ideas, later on we synthesize them. From one chapter, there was a chapter, Ponder Your Death. There was a quote, live in such a way that anyone can die without you having anything to regret. In order to be happy, you need to give up being unique for being happy. Eventually, you will lose your fluid intelligence. So he talks about in the next chapter, cultivating your aspen grove. Happiness, especially among elders, is stable, long-term relationships. People who grow together with you and you can count on no matter what. And if you want to be happy, do these things. Don't smoke, have little alcohol, maintain a healthy body weight, exercise, adopt an appropriate coping style. Continually educate yourself and have long-term stable relationships. The problem is that leaders can become to be lonely due to their inability to develop deep human connections. Because in reality, leaders, they're trying to manipulate people. Their success requires manipulation and persuasion of others. Subordinates also objectify leaders by seeing them not as people per se, but as dispensers of power, information, time, and money. And he talks about the necessity to cultivate a few real relationships. You either have real friends or deal friends. They're real friends if you're actually people you want to talk to. They're deal friends if you're just actually doing deals with them. And it's interesting, he goes on to talk about in this chapter, I like this point, a classic case of addictive behaviors is when something non-human supplants human relationships. I know sometimes I have felt that.
Let me think that one. Let me think that in real fast. Say that again.
I'll say it again. A classic case of addictive behaviors is when something non-human supplants human relationships.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. I would say for myself, let's say, oh, hey, I'm hanging out at a place, but you know what? I'm actually kind of hungry and I just want to go home and gourd myself with some food.
Oh, you're saying the activity
Or the TV, movies, because
Mhm.
replaces
you
human connection. Is that
Yep.
what you're
yeah,
saying?
just
Yeah, okay.
like yeah, you replaces
Yeah.
something that is not human instead of human.
But
I
yeah,
see. Yeah.
it could be even smoking, it could be addicting to reading, addicting to porn, something like that.
You mean like
Um,
in
and so he
a
talks about too, like the stages of life needed, and he goes to this Indian guru and talks about like 4 periods of life, and it's not supposed to be exact, but let's say a life is divided into 25-year spans, and also in each of those periods, it's important to be able to answer the question, "Who am I?" And one thing I liked in the book, he talks about in one chapter, make weaknesses your strength, and the necessity to share your weakness. Be a speaker of others who are weak, because we are all weak in some way. Your decline, as painful as it is, should be experienced and shared. Find meaning in the suffering and sharing that meaning. Let's see. And one thing this does help you do is it allows you to relax. All right. What matters is connecting with others. When you are honest and humble about your weakness, you will be more comfortable in your own skin. And then in the last chapter, he talks about the idea of liminality, going between stages, and the necessity of taking on impermanence of all things, because everything changes in time. And to derive meaning, we need periods of pain and struggle to actually make us temporarily unhappy. I like how he gave the example of Cincinnatus, the dictator in Rome in 458 BC. He led them to victory from siege. He remained in power long enough to see a return to stability, then abruptly resigned to his small farm where he worked and lived humbly with his family. And yeah, he talked about in the next phase of your life. What are you going to keep? What will you evolve and do differently? What will you let go? What new are you going to learn? And in his conclusion, he summed it up with 7 words. Use things, love people, worship the divine. Because also in the book, he talks about how the necessity to a lot of people become more spiritual as they get older. And so a question I want to leave you guys with is, how in your next phase of life, what will you keep and what will you do differently?
I like it. Before we answer that question, if that's okay, I actually have a question for you. So if there's one thing that you're taking away from this book that you're going to apply to your life going forward, like what would that be?
Develop good long-term relationships.
What do you what resonated with you about that one in particular? I guess what do you?
I think because I see myself sometimes not putting enough time into my friendships or family or just social relationships. And that's one thing he talks about, how a lot of quote leaders or people who get ahead, who are successful, do, because they end up just focusing so much on what they're good at, and so they end up neglecting sometimes with their family or their spouse, this and that. So I just think that's just important for me going forward in the next stage of my life, is making sure I develop and nurture friendships, family, relationship with this relationship with people.
Agreed. That's the second half of the yin and yang of Clubney, is the meaningful work and meaningful relationships, right? So it's if you could connect on stuff that you really love with other people, then it's fun. Like, I mean, I want to spend as much time as I can with those people until we can't,
Well, it's not the second half; it's the other half.
Sorry, the other half. Yeah, it's the
It's not the second half.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, the other half. You're right. Yes, good point. All right. So what was the question again?
So the ending question was, in the next phase of your life, what do you, or maybe also like what inside of you, what do you feel like you need to let go of, and what do you want to keep?
Interesting question. True, do you have an answer off the top of your head?
I guess I need to ask the question. You mentioned there's 4 stages in our lives, and are there any significant in regards to what those stages is like? You know, you talk about 25 years each, so is that like supposed to have some kind of a transitioning some point, you know, like
Yeah, it's supposed
early
to, but
age where you say,
I
you know,
didn't
you
go.
fluid.
Yeah, I didn't go exactly like I didn't go too much into that, but it's like, yeah, the first 25 years or, and that's the thing, that's just this one what this one guy think. I don't think I want to, rely too much on the nitty-gritty of like the years, but just saying, yeah, like sort of the first stage of your life is, let's say, you're building a career, you're accumulating wealth, you're, starting maintaining a family. And yeah, I don't know. And
Right,
then
and
whether you end up going into more of like a consulting or let's say like a teaching role or something like that later on.
yeah, so that's why I'm asking, because you know I'm trying to figure out what stage in my life I'm going on to
Uh-huh.
next, right? Is it, you know, the third, the 3/4 half, the 3/4
Yeah.
phase, or the
Well,
fourth
what do
phase?
you feel is bubbling inside of you? Because like we're constantly changing. So what do you feel like it's been bubbling inside of you lately that maybe you either been neglecting or hasn't completely like come full fruit about some change that's happening inside of you?
Well, I don't know if I understand the question. But for me, I guess like right now, the only thing that I'm, I guess, wanting or desire is having true friends. I mean, that's to me more important than money. If somebody were to give me a, you know, enormous amount of money to go do something by myself, I wouldn't do it. I has no desire to do that. So I think, you know, in the years that I'm living now, it's different than the years that when I was like in my early 20s and 30s. And you know, in my early 20s, it's all about trying to build something that's gonna, you know, give me a name or give me a legacy. To be like everybody else. And I guess, you know, I wasn't I didn't understand what I'm supposed to do for myself. So I only, I guess, listens to whatever society or, you know, people around me tells me, hey, you're supposed to be this person. You're supposed to be, you know, a family person. You're supposed to be a man. You're supposed to inherit all these characteristics. You know, eating the frog. You know, you gotta hustle and bustle. You gotta do the thing you don't want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, to me, at this point in my life, is all I want to do is to have a relaxing cup of coffee, talk to friends about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the only thing that I look forward to, and that's something I want to keep. As far as I can see, my future is I want that to be my future, is to get to that point where when I'm talking to somebody, I'm being myself. I don't need to pretend to be anyone. I'm
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in my own skin, and the people that I converse with, I have a genuine interest in that
Mm-hmm.
person, in that in their personal regard versus just a my personal regard. Because in the past, you know, we go to a business meeting, or well, we're a deal friend versus real friends, right? In the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, you would say, you know, we are more of a deal friends because I'm going out to talk to people because maybe there was some kind of a business opportunity for advancement in career, whatever. That's was what's in my head. But now I'm at the stage, I don't really look for that. I mean, a lot of times I really, you know, more time than not, I would shy away from it. So, you know, in these kind of days, I turn down more opportunities than I say yes to. So, you know, it's all about looking for that, I guess, specific connections with other human beings that you feel like it's worth the time you spend. Because as I get older, I feel like my time is becoming more scarce in terms of how much I have left to go, and so I'm putting more value on the time that I have versus on the material things like the monies and the objects and the things that I possess. And so that's, to me, that's how I feel like in my life. I'm not right now I'm not struggling to do anything other than get to the point where I can do whatever it is I want to do. So get to the point where is there a way for me to guarantee a minimum income that I can just, be responsible for my kids, my wife, just enough, and be have the freedom to do the things that Chris and I talk about, which is, just do whatever we feel like, do the things that are meaningful to me. And so
Mhm.
that's the thing that I'm striving forward in terms of trying to accomplish at this point, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that completely makes sense. And I think that just kind of completely goes along like with the book, like how what they're saying is just that I mean, we all like to be heard and understood, and whether it's like, someone's looking at you and shaking their head and like, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
Hmm.
like there's like neurochemistry going on in the brain that's like, oh yes, that feels good.
Right.
And so I think it's just also too as we get older, just it's a very simple, easy way to get pleasure almost in a way. Rather than just
It
chasing this
is.
dopamine or whatever, like, oh, I have to go run a marathon to like get some dopamine hit. Like, oh
Right.
gosh, like
Right.
I can just sit down with some friends and we can just hang out and chat and we can all like connect on just the human condition, I guess. And it's a simple pleasure, but it's also, I think, one that's really rewarding. But he talks about like how sometimes people don't put time into relationships because they can be messy, whether it's a relationship with your spouse or just whatever, some turmoil. Like sometimes relationships can be a little bit messy, because
Yeah,
what
but
are
that's
they?
the thing is my parents, it gets to the point where they are so in a way when the kids grow up and they move out. I mean, they just sometimes my parents pretend to fight just to have to fight.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Right? They just pick on each other just because they say, hey, this is what we used to do.
yeah,
It's an
yeah,
old
yeah.
memory. And so,
Yeah,
they'll fight in a fight, So they do that all the time just because they would jab at each other. I mean, and it's you can tell it's a fun way of fighting, but
yeah,
that's what they do today, and that's how they keep themselves entertained. Just because
yeah.
in the beginning when you have like a bunch of kids to raise, you're constantly trying to figure out what's the next check's gonna come from and how I'm gonna put bread on the table, and that's I mean they fight for other reason, but now they fight for the sake of having fun,
It's play. It sounds like it's play, in a way.
right?
The way cats can sort of like, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, Chris, how about you? Yeah, what do you feel is changing inside of you as you maybe kind of start to go to a next stage in your life, or what do you feel like is percolating inside you as you maybe have transitioned yourself over the years, or how you see
Yeah.
yourself
Um,
adapting for a better life for yourself?
yeah, it's a good question. So I think the question was like, what do you want to keep and what do you want to kind of
Change, yeah, yeah,
keep and change. Yeah. So
yeah.
like from a changing perspective in my life, like I mean this past, since Amelia, like and that whole thing with my family for the past few years, I mean my whole life has completely changed, like I'm just not the same person ever. I mean, I don't even know who I was before at this point in time, which is fine. I'm not saying that in a bad way or a good way. It just is what it is. The what I would love to work on personally is like running for trains. I don't want to run for trains anymore. I really
Wait,
don't.
running
Like
for what?
trains. Meaning like it's a term that Drew and I always talk about. It came from a book with Nassim Taleb.
Okay.
I think it was in the Black Swan where he was like he talked about like I don't want to run for trains, meaning like if you get to the train station and the train's taking off, like and you're sprinting down the platform, like you know
Yeah,
what, just accept it. It's fine. Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm not gonna go and rush through life. I'm not gonna
That's
like
right.
I'm not gonna run for trains. Like
Yep.
if I miss it, I miss it. If I don't, I don't. But I'm gonna go at my own pace. Like I feel like myself, I do a really good job of these days of focusing on my values and living for two with my daughter and trying to live a purpose driven life and I'm very happy with that stuff. But just for instance, like today, I have so many responsibilities of running for trains in the middle of the day,
Mhm.
of 12 employees that I'm taking care of and managing and trying to help coach and develop, as well as a lot of other things that are going on. I'm running from meeting to meeting to meeting. I'm exhausted. I need to go take a nap in the middle of the day and I can't, because I'm freaking my brain is fried. I barely have time to ever eat. I'm like scarfing down food right after I get done with the workout. In between my next meeting. I went to go play tennis tonight, and then I got back at 7:30, and we were doing this at 8 o'clock. And I love talking to this stuff with you guys, but I had to go like heat up some food really fast and shove it down my throat, and and like barely ever enjoy a meal anymore, kind of thing. I mean, all these things are running for trains, really, and I don't like the stuff that I want to do. Like there's like the writing in the morning, spending time with Amelia, learning every day, doing this conversation with you guys. Like I need to balance my day out better, where I give myself time to to still just be myself. And because running for trains wears you down. I mean, it's just even no matter how hard I've tried to stay balanced, like it still makes me tired and exhausted, right? And I know that I don't want to do that. And I told True this like a couple weeks ago, where I was like, it's time for us to do like the full clubbing, because I've been doing clubbing light, if you will, with my my students at work, for the past 8 months now or whatever it's been, and it's been an incredible success. But like at the same time, like I don't want to work at that company, I don't want to work at any company. I want to go do what we want to go do, so I don't have to go run for fucking trains anymore. Similar to what True was just talking about, and I know that's a choice that I do it, but at the same time, like it's hard for me to turn it off, because like I have a part of my elephant is running for trains. Like I love it. I love tasks. I love pushing myself. I love pushing myself into the panic stress zone. Like that's when I've always thrived, and that's why I've always been successful in whatever I've done, even though it wasn't stuff that I should have been doing. I've always forced myself to be successful with them, because like that's just my elephant comes out. But I don't like who I am when I'm running for trains. I get really barky with people. I get really, like, hey, you do this, you do that, you go here, I'm coordinating a lot of people.
But you're good at it. But
right. But I don't want to do that. Like, I mean, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to be a dick that's like barking at people and telling them, like setting up everybody, and you got 5 minutes with me. All right, you do this, get out of here, gotta go, bye, I'm on the next meeting. Like I don't want to fucking do that. Like, I mean, I don't want to tell people what to do. Like I just want to go live for two, live my purpose, do the things that I like to do, write, be creative, whatever, help other people when I can, do all the things that I want to, give more than I take, stuff like that, right? And like I want to live my values, right? And I do that, but right now there's a lot of big trains there's a lot of trains that I catch in the middle of the day, and I don't want to do that anymore. And then in terms of keeping, like, I mean, stay focused on your values. I mean, I do very good at that at this point in time in my life, and that's never going to change. Like, I'm going to do that for the rest of my life until the day that I die. But because that's when I spend time with my daughter. So that's what I want to keep, I guess, for sure. But yeah, I need to do a better job of not running for trains. Yeah.
Well, your strength is your weakness, when your weakness is your strength, right? And so I think, to me, I am proud to say I'm very good at not running for trains, because that's my strength and that's also my weakness. Because when you can run for train, you will run for train. I'm too old for that. I can't even run for trains. So I stop doing it. It's easy for me, So eventually, I think whenever you have the strength and the ability to juggle all the stuff, you do that, because hey, it doesn't take me that much. I can maybe suck it in for a bit and do it. But eventually it gets to the point where you exhaust so much of your energy, and you get to a phase of your life where you can't do that. You just can't. You can't recover. It's just like if you get burnout, right? You're gonna be down for 2 weeks to a month before you can get back up and even do anything again. And for most people, hey, they do a project and do like you can do like late nights, weekends, and all that, and then suddenly they take maybe 1 or 2 days off, and then the next 2 days they come back and they're fresh and they're ready to go again. But when you get to the point where you pass the point of in that phase where you don't regenerate as fast of energy as you can, you just can't do it. So to me, like running for train is not possible. Even if I want to, it's not possible.
Right.
Because it's beyond my ability. Just imagine me like with a cane go through. Go train, right? It's not. I can't. If it,
You're still young and fit, Trio. Come on, what are you talking about?
And so that's what I'm saying is, eventually you get to a certain I guess phase in your life, things gonna be different. Just like in the past when when somebody challenges you, you're being competitive, then you go and accept the challenge. It's hard for us to let go when we're younger, but when I'm at this age, like I there's some things that will get to me, but I forget it within the past 5 minutes. I don't really hold on to it. It's easy for me to let go of things now. And
Yeah.
so, like I say, it's a strength, but it's also a weakness because it's vice versa. And one of those things where I think what Snow was saying is you have to be able to be comfortable in your own skin, and so regardless of what it is, you need to accept like he was saying this, accept the declining, right? Whatever that means. I mean, like to me, you're just transitioning from one phase of your life to the next. In the beginning, you're more fluid, and then in the later years, you're more crystallized. It's just like
I
we
actually,
have.
I have a bone to pick with that. Actually, I personally think that's totally wrong.
Also,
I think if you do your best to stay curious your whole life and you always put learning at the forefront, like you can always be fluid because you should always have that, try to cultivate that don't know mind. I don't care if you're 99 years old and and you're you think you've seen everything you're going to see in this world. Like that's what keeps it fun. Like that's what keeps life, that like when you light your last cigarette, the like we talked about with A Man's Search for Meaning, when there's nothing left for you. Like I mean, like when you keep curiosity and questioning and fluidity of knowing, like I don't know anything yet and I still have a lot to learn, like that keeps your mind engaged and it keeps your body engaged. It keeps everything engaged.
Yep.
And
I mean, he was saying like you should always be doing education. He wasn't saying like you can't learn anything, but like I think about an 18-year-old learning a new language compared to a 45-year-old. Like, who do you think is going to pick it up quicker?
I
well,
mean,
the thing is, I
I
don't
don't
think
think
it's
that I don't think
about.
that
I
has
kind of think
anything
like the
to
18-year-old, like the younger person would, because they're just, or even like, people talk about like with mathematical theory, like, he actually gives the example that like he was a mathematics like theorist earlier in his career, and like he can't even do the math now that he did back then.
Well, did he fall out of practice? Did he stop doing it every day?
No,
Did he
so
stop
I
learning
think,
and
well,
challenging himself?
and
Like,
personally, I think it's not the way that we see it, because the way that we learn, we always learn. When you're younger, you learn. When you're older, you learn. But the way you learn is different. And we talk about this in the past as well. When we have knowledge, we have a confirmation bias. Meaning that's why Snow said, when you are younger, you're creative, right? It comes from out of nowhere. But when you are older, you're more synthesis. You synthesize the information you have. So you're still learning, but the approach to the learning is different. You're using the existing data to make sense of the new data, the new learning, the new curiosity. So I think you still curiosity. You have curiosity, but the way that you can't always get rid of the confirmation bias, because the information you have will always going to lean you towards that side. For example, you're more of a creative person. You're a good talker. You are more creative in the social world. You create in the sales, but you cannot be creative in the, for example, astrophysics or programming like me, because you already have a bias towards sales. But for like Luca, right, he doesn't have either the technical in the physics or the computers, nor the other one. He can pick without having the I guess a pull. You have this force that pulls you towards what you know,
yeah,
right? And
I
so
mean,
I
I agree
think
with
I
that.
think the synthesis, it makes sense to me, because because whatever you know, it's going to influence you. It's hard to get rid of it. To say, I knew this, and then now I'm doing something that it's contradicting to what I've learned and what I've accepted, what I believe. It's very hard. I mean,
Oh, I agree.
try
I,
that. So I think like that's what I'm saying is the learning of it. I don't think it's the point of not learning and not be having new information and not be curious. You can be curious, but the way that you learn things is going to be different, right? So
I
that means that
yeah.
means that in a way, the way he split it makes sense to me uh in that kind of logic versus hey, because I'm not saying that you cannot do that, but it's going to take more effort to do that. I mean, maybe you
That's my
can
point.
just
Is like
immerse
you have to
yourself
try to do
into,
that. Yeah.
yeah, you have to kind of like use willpower to immerse yourself in an environment
Now,
where
I don't know that you need to use willpower. It has to be a practice as you get older to try to maintain that fluidity. Like, I mean, like then you become, you know, I think it's even better when you get older when you try to have that fluidity personally, because like when you're younger, you know, you can add in all the stuff that you have crystallized a little bit, and then you get way more rangy, and your creativity goes bananas because you can.
But I think the
you have
rangy
way more
happens
to.
only in the period of learning, not in the period of later years. I don't think that's
I
going to
disagree.
give you. I mean, I think it's hard. It's hard.
I didn't say it's not hard.
Because what happened is, you know, in the physical sense, right? In the physical sense, you have this neurons that fire. The more it fires, the more you know how you create a rut, right? If you run a wheel over a certain mud pattern,
Yeah.
the deep level is going to become more
Mm.
entrenched. It ducks
Mhm.
itself in. The brain does the same way. The more it fires, the more it connects. And so
Right.
when it connects, just like the river, why does the river go a certain way? Just because more of the water molecule goes the same direction. That's why the river is entrenched deeply in a certain path, because more of the water molecule goes down that way. That's why it's called entrenched, right? It's called you in a rut. The brain does the same thing. So whenever you going to pour a gallon of water down the hill, it's going to follow the same path unless you're trying to use some external force to make it go a different path. It's going to try to follow the same path probability wise. It is going to follow the same path that other people are taking. Same thing with sidewalk. Like let's say you have some kind of a grass patchy area, and then you do you see how you have like people build like concrete sidewalk, and then suddenly there's some kind of a curved sidewalk that kind of like, you know, it cut the corner essentially. That's because and it's only that one path, right? Not everywhere. Only one path of grass is there because that's what people go. And when people see that path, they follow that. They follow. They don't create new footprints on it. They follow the same path. And so the thing
Right.
is, in the way that we are being built as humans, we have those genes to kind of, I guess, pick up these patterns, and we influenced by what we see and what we know. And you have to be conscious, very conscious, to say, no, I can't do that. So something what I told you about yesterday, right? I know that for me to spend 2 days figuring out how to buy a $10 cable, it is not worth my time. But for whatever reason, I'm still, you know, affected by the fact that I need want to choose, you know, a good cable. I don't want a bad cable, even though it's a $10. It doesn't worth anything to me in the grand scheme of things. So, I mean, I can't just deny the fact that I knew some of the characteristics of the cable and how it works and whatever. Because of that, it makes me attached to finding, you know, a better way. Because, you know, but if I knew nothing about computer and I see the reviews on Amazon, I say, okay, I'll buy that one. It'll take me 10 seconds, even a minute, versus take me 2 days to find a cable that I want. And then I ended up buying like a bunch of other cables. I buy like 5 of them. So the thing is, because I knew of the I guess the properties of the cable, because I'm a computer guy, so I knew what I wanted, I knew what I need, and what these guys can deliver. That knowledge influenced my ability to make that decisions. It paralyzed me for at least 2 days.
I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm not saying that what the guy said either is not necessarily what most people do. I'm just saying that it's not necessarily like that is the way that it has to be. Like yes, you are right. It is not easy to shake that, you know, the crystallization of your lived experiences and everything that you've lived in your life. I'm not saying it's not impossible though either, and I'm saying if
I'm
you
not.
can,
I can't
like,
deny that it's impossible, but I'm saying it's very difficult because you're gonna have to be very
I agree.
mindful of that fact all the time. So you have to be able to
It's got to be in
build
practice.
a habit of some sort
Yeah.
to pick up something that you have know nothing about. I want to be spontaneous. That's my characteristics of my core value, and be able to delve into like, hey, you know, this is the black hole. I want to be able to research and figure it out and be curious about black hole. No, I don't want to. I don't. It's too much for me. I don't want to talk about MC squared and how it gets there. What's faster than speed of light, right? And how does speed of light work? What does that mean? So to a lot of people, when they start to explore that kind of an area of knowledge, they
shut it
shy
down. They're like,
away
I don't
from
want,
it
yeah,
because
right. Like,
it's better for them to go, hey, I'm very good in sales. I understand how sales work. For this guy to say, hey, this ChatGPT is gonna be able to do this, do that. Oh, I got a bunch of ideas. Or I read Platform Revolution and I can understand what he's saying. Oh yeah, I have this is cost synthesis. When you say, hey, you know how they do the A, B, and B thing. Oh, I can do the kitchen thing. Oh, I can do the I can do the tool thing. But that's synthesis. You using I'm the Uber of X. Everybody's doing synthesis. It's synthesis knowledge because
I'm not disagreeing. I'm saying you can do them both. Is all I was trying to say. Is like it doesn't have to be this and then this and that's where you are. I'm saying you could do both at the same time and get better and be fluid and also crystallize.
Well,
I
think you can do anything. That's like I'm saying is you can clean toilets, but you don't want to because what I said yesterday is about you don't want to be able to say, hey, I want to do this. I want to control my ability to do it. You're gonna have to accept who you are, what genes patterns you have, and be that. If you don't have the curiosity, then you don't have it. It's not going to give you any kind of satisfaction to say, hey, I'm going to build this habit to be curious in the sense that I don't want to be. That's going to make it very you're going to make your life more miserable. That's all you're getting. Just like I'm a beaver, you put me in the desert, right? It's going to make my life miserable. I mean, I can say, hey, I can learn how to swim in sand, right? But it's going to make can I do it? Maybe. Yeah, but it's going to make my life miserable. So to me, it's about you're gonna have to understand and discover who you are, what genes you have, what drives you, what gives you the joy that sparks, like what sparks joy for you, and let that happen. Because you can say, well, I don't want to be crystallized. I want to be creative, right? I want to be fluid, and have the fluid intelligence, right? And you can try all you want, because if you get into the phase where your brains has been crystallized, right? It's hard for you to make that crystallized intelligence fluid. It's not. You're going against the grain. So I'm saying I'm not going to say it's never, but I'm saying, hey, by the sheer probability, that is probably best if you understand who you are first and allow you to be who you are. Because if you can do that, I think it's easier to do the next step, which is being comfortable in your own skin. Right? And then once you have that, then the people that you talk to, they're going to like you for who you truly are. But if I pretend to be somebody, the other person is going to like me for what I pretend to be, and then certainly I'm not, then my relationship with that person isn't real. It's not real. Therefore, it wasn't a satisfaction for me, and it's a disappointment for the other person. Because a lot of things I say, like for me, people hate what I say. Say, hey, why this guy saying all these stupid things, right? But for some people, right, they like what I say. They're my friends. If they don't, they're not my friends. What I'm saying is, because thing is, when I'm on here and I'm on this podcast and I'm public, I don't really care what I say. I just don't. I have no reservation in what I say. I can say some stupid things, and that's okay. And if somebody calls me on it, I don't really care, right? Because that's the thing is, I'm got to the point where I say I gotta be who I am. I cannot pretend to be someone else for someone else.
So you're saying crystallize who you are, but leave open fluidity.
Well, the thing is, Snow
else,
say that this transitioning period in your life where you happen to belong to the species where in your younger years your brains are very fluid. In the older years, when you becoming more like crystallize, your brains, your information is going to crystallize. That's the process that the author sees. He said, hey, in the younger years, your intelligence and your informations and what you have in your brains, it's not fixed. It rotates and can change. But once you get to a past a certain phase in your life, the way that your gene acts changes, and it changes what you like, It changes what you do, what you behave, who you want to hang out with. Just like I say in the beginning, I didn't know what I was doing. Therefore, I was doing whatever people tell me to do. And I think I had fun. But then when I get older, I say, I don't really care about those things.
Right.
So, like, Snow was saying, hey, what is boiling inside you trying to make change? What do you want to let go of? What you want to keep? Because when you transition from one place to the next, you're going to have to leave something. You're going to have to let go of something and keep something or gain pick up something else. Because right now, I can tell you, right, my best and most important value is I don't want to go trains, and that to me is like my most valuable lesson that I've ever learned. But to other people, it's nonsense, right? People like, hey, like you people younger, they say, hey, I've got to make a name for myself. I got to hustle and bustle. This guy's an idiot. Okay, but that's the thing is because myself as a person, my DNA, my genes has changed in the way that humans should change from when they grow from one phase to the next phase, and so that my priority has changes, and your priorities will change too because like right now you can run for train. That's why you're running it. I cannot because I can try, but I'm gonna pay a hefty price for running for trains. That for me is that's why I can, not run for trains and I can accomplish that pretty well because, the opposite is quite difficult.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting. What else you got, Snow, with this one?
I don't know. I mean, it was just neat to hear you guys talk about it, and just it almost helped me. Tree was talking about like the fluidity in the brain and just how like the pathways, how whatever, just the more you do something, the better the better you get at that thing, or the more ingrained it is, and just kind of like that can be what that crystallized intelligence is, and just sort of like an accepting too of like not trying to do too much, and whether it's conservation of energy too, or just bringing together like everything that you've learned, throughout our lives, and for finding some contentment, because I think we all do want to find some contentment, because it's sort of easy. It's sort of I don't know. It's sort of what conservation of energy as well. Just finding some contentment, whether that's being okay within your own skin, or just being able to be authentic and be like, yeah, I don't really like work, around my colleagues, and just like, but that's just who I am. You know what I mean? Like it's
I just watched
so
Office Space again. You remember Office Space?
yeah, totally.
When he's like, I don't really like my job. I'm just not gonna go. What do you mean? What do you mean you're not gonna go? Like
Yeah.
you're just not gonna go? Yeah, no, I'm not gonna go anymore. Were you gonna tell somebody? Like,
No.
I don't think I am. I think I'm just not gonna go.
And like I don't know, just hearing Chris, you talk about just like how your job, like how you're constantly running from train to train, and just like you just want to focus on whatever. On I think I wrote a little note about it when we were talking, like yeah, I guess whatever. Just the whole not running for trains, and how you just want to like chill out and live your values, and I feel like that's what I'm kind of going through too with myself, in terms of like I don't mind working a little bit, but I don't want to work as much, and but I do want to earn some money and some income, and that's why I'm looking about doing a development project here in Carolina, because I recently bought some land, and I'm gonna develop a duplex on one of them just for some more passive income, because I don't want to work as much,
Right.
and some people might get pissed off that I'm building some property on some nice farmland, but I'm sorry, I don't want to work as much,
So
Well, no,
that's the thing.
well, hang on. I was going to say, it's not that you don't want to work. You want to do meaningful work for the amount of time that you want to do meaningful work each day. Like you don't want to be on somebody else's train schedule where they're like, you got to be here from 7 a.m. until 4 p.m.
Oh
doing
yeah,
this, and this. Because you find meaning in what you do as a teacher.
yeah,
Otherwise, you
exactly.
wouldn't
Yeah,
teach. But you only want to do it for this amount of time, like, and then I got other shit to do.
It's hard to
Yeah, I mean,
find
I think
meaning doing things
exactly.
for
That's
other
what I'm
people.
saying is I'm actually working more now than before.
Right. Yeah. For sure. I do way more
Right?
now than I've
But
ever done in my
I
entire
do
life.
Oh,
what I
totally. Yeah,
want
yeah.
whenever I want, and that's to me that's the desire for my
That
next phase
exactly.
is
Yep.
to get to the point where I have the ability to do what I want to do whenever I want to do it. But like I said, I'm sometimes like I'm like completely kind of like immersed in a project, and I'm like having in the life of my time,
It's
like
fun.
the time of my life, just because I get to do the things that it matters to me. For whatever reason, it matters to me at that point. And
Yep.
it's a
And that's
project,
that's what,
whether that's to go outside and build a garden or build a shed or build a tool or whatever, doesn't matter. But
yep.
if somebody were to say, hey, you got to go do that, then for whatever reason, is
No.
it as fun and it's just,
Yeah.
it
It's
is
for
like,
whatever reason, yeah, we're just humans. We just don't tell a monkey what
Yeah.
to do. You
Don't
know?
fucking like I mean
You know?
I don't
it's the same thing. Yeah, go teach
Yeah.
something. Well, I love teaching, but I don't want to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
if somebody told me that I needed to have an hour-long one-on-one with every one of my employees every single week, and it had to be done, and here's the times you do it, I would go no. But if you said, hey Chris, like, what do you find most meaningful about your job, is when I get to have one-on-ones with my employees,
Yeah.
and I get to help coach and develop, and we talk about topics like this, and what they want to do with their life and live in their values. But it's like when somebody fucking tells me how to spend my time, that's when I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Fuck you. Like, I mean,
yeah, it's really funny because you're right. Because if someone could tell Trio, go build a shed. Fuck you, no.
No.
What Trio doing? He's gonna go out and build a shed.
Yeah. Like that's like actually how to win friends and influence people, is you get them to do it for you. You talked about being a leader and how a lot of leadership is manipulation of people. It kind of is, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, we talked about this a lot. The 48 Laws of Power and How to Win Friends and Influence People are the same fucking book. It's just one of them, is about winning friends and influencing people. The other one's about power and influence, of the people. But it's still manipulation of how you get people to do what you want them to do. Like, you're not like the whole How to Win Friends and Influence book is not some. All it is like guiding people down the path that you want to guide them down, and asking them questions and understanding about their life, and you get them to open up, and you get them to do what they really want to do, but you really wanted them to do at the same time, and it's like a win-win at that point in time. On the other end of it,
it's just as simple as, even if I knew it was manipulation, I would do it. If my wife would say, hey, honey, I have so much stuff, I don't know what to do, can you solve the problem for me? I'll go there and fucking build her a shed. But for her to say, hey, I need more room, go build my shed, I ain't doing it. It's just the same thing. Right. And even though I knew that she could manipulate me in a way, but for whatever reason, my genes accepted that. I have the energy to go out there and build her a shed. I want to be the problem solver. Okay. Right. And because that's me, you align the question and the request in a way that aligns with who I am, then it gives me energy to do that. And I will happily do it. And I will do it better than you would have given me money for it. I mean, you give me money and tell me to do something. It's like, I ain't doing it.
No fucking way that if anybody would have asked True or I to record 220 podcasts and myself to read 365 books and write a report basically on each one of them, where it's now 280,000 words on this document, over the past 17 months that I've been writing this project. You know what I mean? Like if somebody were to told me to fucking do that, I would have said, get the fuck out of here. I told True that I wanted to do this. He was like, that sounds like a great idea.
We can't get past like 20. It's like, this is bad.
There's no way I would have done it. Like, I did it because I wanted to do it, and I made the choice to go do it. And honestly, True has done a really good job as my partner in crime here, of always, like, he does a good job of letting me be creative, but then, like, letting me just go do what I want to go do, and then throwing it in my court and saying, okay, fine, I'm going to encourage you to go do it, but like, if you want to do it, then you do it, and then we'll see where we go. Like, I mean, we just had this idea I have ideas every fucking day, but I've gotten better at not telling True every one of them. Some of them I feel like are good enough to go tell him, so I tell him. And we were talking about it last time you were on the call with us, right? And I was like, hey, I wanted to stay on and talk to you about
that's right. Yeah. With your bank idea for the toenail place.
Right. Yeah, exactly. What he does a really good job at is like putting the back in my court of like, okay, how would you go do that? Or basically, he doesn't ask me that, but that's how it ends up doing. And then I'm like, well, I'll do this, this, and this. And then I have to go think about it. And I'm like, well, I'm already running for trains all over the place. Is this really aligned to my values? Is this really what I want to go do? And then, if I want to go put in that work to go connect with a bunch of people on LinkedIn to be able to do XYZ, to be able to facilitate this transaction, and then come back to tell True my findings, so we can maybe think about building a technology around it. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do that. But then Sometimes I do, and I did. Like
Mhm.
the year of magical learning was an idea that I talked to him about. I was like, it would be really cool. This seems like it aligns to our club any values as to what I want to do, and this is something that I would like to try out. And and I said, I'll do it as a 30-day challenge. He was like, yeah, do it, see what happens. So after 30 days, I was still writing, and I was like, this is fun. like, let's keep rocking and rolling, right? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's a good point overall of like, if you want somebody to do something, you got to manipulate them into wanting them to do it themselves. Otherwise, it'll
I
never
don't
get
think
done.
it's, I don't think it's
Yeah.
manipulating. It's aligning. It's
Right.
aligning because just to me, I am a problem solver. I love to solve problems. Allow me to solve the problem.
Right.
Okay, don't solve the problem. Make me do it. Because
Mhm.
like I said, I know. I mean, I'm not. I'm not that smart, but I'm smart enough to tell you manipulating me. But I'm willing to be allowed to manipulate because
Yeah,
I get
it's
a
fine.
joy out of doing that. Because so I don't think it's about manipulating. It's about aligning.
That's fair. Yeah.
You have to align. Like, okay, what is it that you want to do and why you want to do it? You ask the question without. I mean, it's the same. You put in the same request. It's just the way you word the request.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that manipulating is a bad thing
Just
either.
like
Like
you're saying the book How to Win Friends and Influence People and the 48 Power Law. It's exactly the same concept. One is just telling you from the other side of the story, and the other one is telling you from the other side. It's the same thing, but you get people to want to do more things, better things, when you tell them from the How to Win Friends and Influence perspective versus the other one. The other one, you say, "Oh, this people are gonna do this," and So
Mhm.
it's exactly the same. It's just basically the way you look at it.
100%. I mean, I have one of my employees. He is really taken to the culture we've been trying to build around learning, reflecting, daily exercise, stuff like that, and things that we do for like the core values quest, which is what I'm doing with my employees, and we're building a great culture around it. And the other day in one of our one-on-ones, he was like, Chris, I mean, multiple of them have told me, like at least four of them have told me this, like almost verbatim. But this one particular person, like when we don't even have one-on-ones anymore where we talk about work, he just literally reads one of my reflections, and he's like, tells me about the book that he's reading, and then he's like, hey, tell me more about this, and we just have conversations. And he'll tell me at the end of it, he's like, Chris, I don't think you understand, like this is how much this is changing not just my life but everybody's other lives on this team, and yada yada yada, and like how much better we all feel as human beings. And I'm like, that's great. And I go, I was like, we got talking further and further around like the concepts of what I was trying to do. And I've kind of peeled back the curtain a little bit on the whole club and stuff. He's the only one on the team that I've told, because he's been really, really curious about a lot of this stuff. Like that this is basically an experiment. And I was like, call it a manipulation if you want to, but you like it and you want to be manipulated by this, and you're enjoying it and you're having fun in this process. And he's like, yeah, fuck yeah. I don't want to stop doing this, So true to your point, like it's not, manipulation is one of those words that's like has a bad
It has a
connotation.
bad
Right.
connotation, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like addiction has a bad connotation, but we're addicted to a lot of other things, good things, reading, learning, I mean, we have a fucking conversation every night. You don't think that's an addiction? Like, I mean, like,
Well, it depends. Does it end up supplanting human relationships? Does it end up like getting in the way of a relationship with your
but you're saying
spouse?
addiction is bad though. Like this is what I'm
Addiction
saying.
can be good. Or like addiction? Well, like how he define. I like how he defined it in the book. Because he defines addiction as a bad thing, because if it's an addiction, if it gets in the way of supplanting human relationships.
Right, but that's like How to Win Friends and Influence People versus 48 Laws of Power. Because an addiction could also bring you together, like we're doing right now, right? Like I mean,
But
there's
this isn't an addiction unless it's like getting in the way of like relationship with like you and your spouse, though.
I mean, Snow, have I read 300 plus books in the past 3 years of my life? Have I written every single day? It's been over 1,000 straight days since I've written every single day of my life, right? Would you call that an addiction? I go on I run every single day. Like, is that an addiction? Like, I mean, I'm not saying you're saying addiction in a bad way, just like manipulative can be said in a bad way. I'm saying addiction in a good way. Just like manipulation can be good in a good way. Like if done for the right reasons, if done to align to your values and done for kind of pure intentions, I don't think addiction's a bad thing at all.
I think I would just call it a different word then.
I agree.
What other word?
What would you call it? Like
a habit.
That's why I call it aligning with what I want. Just give me what I want. I'll do it. It's the same request. Just tell me in a way that I want to hear it.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Hang on.
Like I said, I told you, I know that's what she wanted, right? So it's how you word it. If you word it in one way, I mean, the thing's built beautifully and say, hey, ta-da, I have this beautiful thing for you. It solves your problem. Ta-da, I'm the problem solver. I'm the hero, right?
Right.
That's what I want to be. So let me be it versus,
I
hey,
agree.
be the slave and go do the thing.
Well, so hang on, but like then we need to find a new word for positive addiction, because habit's not that word, because there's a lot of bad habits as well that are also bad addictions. Like, I mean, like habit, I mean, smoking is a habit, right? Like it's also a bad addiction, if we're going to call it an addiction, right? You know,
if you're
I
addicted,
can't,
but like, yeah, you get addicted to cigarettes, like, you know,
right. So I mean, I'm cool with finding a new word for it, but I don't know what that word is. Like, you know, of being drawn to something and compulsively doing it for good reasons.
I don't know. I mean, but because I just think that exercise can become, and I use the word addiction in the terms of a bad habit sense, you know,
Right.
in terms of it getting in the way of even whether that's the human relationship with yourself, you know, or something. So, I don't know. I mean, I think if addiction is a bad thing, I think that then something that's a positive habit that you do over and over again. I don't know. Why can't we just call it a positive habit?
Well, then call
Yeah.
addiction a negative habit. I mean, like,
Yeah.
then you know what I mean? Like, then the word addiction shouldn't exist. If it's a positive habit and a negative habit, then I'm fine with that, right? Like, because it could be a negative habit
I
that
mean,
takes you away from
addiction
your
is an
values.
absolute thing. It's a drawn to something, whether it's negative or positive. You see, you drawn to it. If you're not putting the sign in front of the word say negative or positive. Addiction is say, hey, I'm attached to something.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm gonna be attached to something that is not good for me. I'm gonna be attached to something that's good for me. So you know, it's more of like the absolute of, you know, in math, where you have the absolute numbers, right? Whether it's negative or positive, it still have the same distance. So the attachment is the addiction. You're attaching to some kind of event, things, or whatever it is. It's still an attachment, a strong attraction for that thing. That's an addiction.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, semantics can be hard, or like, you know, the definition of words can be hard to define life, because life is actually a lot larger than words.
Exactly. But words matter, because that's how we communicate.
That's how we communicate.
Like, yeah, I mean, so like this was one of the reflections from many, you know, books past, called the four agreements or whatever. You know, always be impeccable with your words, right? Like, words matter. What you say should be very crystal clear as to what you like. You shouldn't really speak anything until you really understand what those words that are coming out of your mouth actually means, you know, to you. Because if you don't understand it, then somebody else that you're speaking it to won't ever fucking understand it. You know what I mean? And like, that's the same thing with values. If you don't even understand your own values, there's no way you could ever express to somebody else what you actually care about in life, you know? Like, because you don't know yourself, you know? So anyway, all right, I know we're over time. Yeah, but I don't know, does anybody have any final thoughts?
I would say my final thought for Strength to Strength, read it, check it out.
Sounds good. Sounds like a good book. I
Oh,
mean,
the last quote from it, we'll end with this, from St. Augustine: love, do what you will.
Love, like love, comma, do what you will.
I think it was love, period, do what you will. Let me double check here.
I mean, I agree. Do what you love. Like, I mean, 100%.
Wherever it was, that was something like the last line of it. Anyway, it's all good. Love and do what you will.
Yes, sounds good.
Love it. Any final thoughts, Drew?
No, not really, because like I say, everything I keep saying is go back to the same thing that I want to do for myself is you gotta be who you gotta be.
Yeah.
Period. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. Profoundly simple. I like it. Good work. Very cool. So, well, thanks for guest hosting and bringing a new book for us to learn about. And feel free to do that anytime. Next time you finish the next book, you know.
Next book I talk about will be Life is in the transitions.
Nice. What
Chris,
has
Mm.
something changed?
This
That's
would be a
intriguing.
good book for you. It's well, I mean, just in terms of your disruption that happened a couple of years ago.
Yeah. No, that'll be interesting. I'll look forward to hearing about it. Yeah, no, can't wait. All right, next time you're done, come back and we'll talk about it. Awesome. Thanks for joining, everyone, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Good night, everybody.
See you.